what is your main instrument? Is it,
I'm a guitar player.
uh-huh.
I once in a while do MIDI. Like if I do a melody,
Yes.
I do really poor MIDI, and then I go in and manually doll it up. And,
That's exactly what I do because I'm no keyboard player. I wish I'd learnt piano
oh, I do too.
early in
Yeah.
life. Because
Yes.
I I started learning guitar, teaching myself when I was 16.
Ah.
Now, my mother could play piano and she could play by ear. She'd had lessons, but I was born 1960, and that was a time when a lot of people had a piano in the house,
Yes.
but people were throwing them out because people were getting more sophisticated music systems, radiograms they call them,
Yeah.
and people were getting TVs, and people were just throwing out pianos. And apparently, I don't remember the family piano, but my mom told me that my dad threw out the piano soon after I was born, and I always wondered if it had not been thrown out, would I have picked it up? Because
We had a
that's
baby
what I do.
grand.
It would have been just an upright. Everyone had an upright piano,
Yeah.
against the wall, and that was the
Yeah.
entertainment
That's the most.
system if you had a party.
I don't know the story behind it, but for some reason we had a baby grand, and
Wow.
we had it. We were from small towns in Washington and Oregon, and we moved it around. And at some point, my dad, I think probably due to financial, reasons, got rid of it finally. And um, so. But I remember banging on it when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, that's what I would do. I'd often go to like a friend's house, and they would still have their piano. Sometimes they'd let you mess with it, and other times they
Mhm.
wouldn't. And there'd always be just like one person in the house who could play it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she could play anything, my mom. So I
Oh,
always think
great.
that whatever musical ability I have probably comes from her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I picked up guitar at 16 because everyone was trying to play guitar. That was like the rite of passage when you were
Yeah.
a teenager of a certain age. You wanted to emulate
I was
or
I
to
was
try and
blessed.
reproduce the music.
I was
What's
just
that?
blessed. I was just blessed. My dad,
Uh-huh.
prior to World War II, had played. He had been trained in piano and violin as a little kid,
Wow.
and then played upright bass in a jazz band in Eastern Washington and Idaho, and uh,
Oh.
and so when I was the youngest of three, and so when my two older brothers came along, they started a surf band a little before the Beatles.
Oh.
And so I was exposed to all that, and I remember stealing my brother's crummy acoustic, and trying to copy what I saw him do.
Right.
And so I was about 11, I think, when I started noodling around and trying to
Because that,
come
that
up.
was a great time, that I mean, I remember that surf music, and there was a lot of those
Yeah, and then
instrumental guitar bands,
that's right, the
like the
Ventures,
Ventures, and in,
and
in,
they're
in the UK we had the Shadows.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
I love Hank Marvin. Yeah,
Yeah, because I
yeah.
think Hank Marvin had the first Fender Stratocaster in the UK ever.
He did. Yes, yeah. We had a lot of the Ventures. A couple of them had lived right here, about 40 miles north of me when they were young,
Wow,
and
really?
so they were very West Coast. They were from California to Washington. My brother's band opened for them actually,
Wow,
probably in '61, maybe, or '62, something like that.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So that was it was a great time. And then the British invasion. That's about the time I came
Yeah.
along, and that just knocked my socks off. So, and I'm still a British invasion fan. So,
Well, I guess me too. I mean, all my music. I've been in the US 20 years now,
ah,
but yeah, I guess all my influences, because obviously I remember the Beatles as a kid. I was born
yeah,
1960, so
yeah,
you know I caught on to the music when I was like 3 years old, and I
yeah.
had a plastic Beatles wig. And one year for Christmas, I had a Ringo drum, which was like a real snare drum.
Hmm.
Because everyone thought I was going to be a drummer then, because I used to get these the little cheap stools that we used to have for the dining table and turn
Uh-huh.
them into drums and get my mom's knitting needles and play along
Yeah.
to the Beatles. So they got me a proper Ringo drum. But they also bought me a Spanish guitar, but there was no book with it, no tuner, so I never learned to play it. I didn't learn till I was like 16.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I just focused in on that for a few years. But yeah, I always wished I could play piano because, like you, it's great having MIDI and I can do some things and then edit it afterwards in the MIDI editor.
Yeah.
But,
I often joke I do everything I use Band in a Box, and I do everything in the key of C starting out, and
right,
that way when I'm doing MIDI, it's everything in the
right,
right keys, and then I can go in and
yeah,
switch it to whatever sounds best, E flat or whatever. So
yeah. Well,
uh,
I used Cubase. It was the first recording
ah,
software I used, and I
hmm,
stick with it because going back about 25 years, Cubase was the music program then, and
yeah,
it's since been surpassed by like Pro Tools and all those other
yeah.
things. But
I still use
I still like Cubase.
Cakewalk, yeah,
Cakewalk, yeah.
for recording. My computer's old that I record on, so
Well, mine. This is a real. I got like a $300 laptop, but it does the work. It's just I ran out of space pretty quickly, so I
yeah,
thumb drive. So I save stuff to the thumb drive a lot.
yeah, I do that
But,
too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's yeah. I was saying
Yeah, I
to
haven't.
Vivian earlier, I used to gig as a solo singer guitarist, mostly just at one restaurant once a month, and I'd do the occasional private gig through Gig Masters. But then, the pandemic hit, and I haven't
Yeah,
played live in over 2 years. But then that made me kind of return to home recording, and I've been
that's
having great fun trying to make these little cheesy music videos, and got myself a green screen so I could
uh-huh.
be anywhere in the world.
I'll have to watch those. I'll have to take a peek
Oh
at them.
yeah, please
I
do.
used to do the only live thing. Well, I had a band up until I don't know 2005,
Yeah.
and we played local bars and what have you.
Hmm.
Often, not very often, but once in a while. And and then I would do about a once a year Christmas jazz kind of thing for Christmas jazz, a volunteer dinner thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, the last 2 years I retired right when the pandemic hit, so I went to YouTube, and that's been a blessing I think as well. So it
Yeah.
gave me an outlet.
So what style is your music? What of the band and everything?
Well, with the band was classic rock, but we always redid it and amped it up 10 times, and you
Yeah.
know, and I prefer more jazzy, bluesy. Basically a blues rock guy, and I'm not a
Right.
jazz player, but not a serious one. I watch all the. I always say you can tell when I used a musician from Band in a Box in my studio versus when I did the solo myself. If it sounds like a lot of random notes, that's me playing. And if it sounds really good, it's one of the musicians from my arrangement software. So, uh,
Uh, oh, we've got Rhodey's Jam Cave. Hi,
oh,
Rhodey.
Rody, hi, Rody. Rody puts out a lot of good rock videos too. Him and his band
Yeah, I
down at the
saw.
Jam Cave.
I've seen some of his. There's a link if anyone wants to join. But yeah, that's great blues because there was the big blues kind of thing in the late '60s,
Yeah,
wasn't there? And I always liked the early incarnations of Fleetwood Mac
Yes,
with Peter
with
Green.
Peter Green. Yeah,
Yeah, Danny Kerwin.
yeah, yeah. There was
Because
a
I
lot of,
remember,
and a lot of that was pushed by British blues. You know, I mean, it was like
yeah, there was a blues boom.
coming back to
It's
the U.S.
yeah.
from
Well, it's strange
England.
because the
I love that.
that like the Rolling Stones were originally a kind of a blues cover
Yeah,
band, but
yeah,
it's strange it took a few years for that to reinvent itself in the late
yeah.
60s.
Hmm.
Because I think with I guess the early 60s it became all about songwriting and exploring new things, but then suddenly it kind of went back to blues in the late 60s. And
Yeah, yeah. And the Animals, they weren't pure
yeah,
blues, but they had a lot of bluesy
yes.
stuff. Yeah.
It, I
So,
always remember, I think it was Robert Plant saying the the first song on the Led Zeppelin 4 album, Black Dog, that was influenced by Peter Green's "Oh Well." That
oh,
kind of where he does that riff and then it's silence and then he does that spoken or that unaccompanied song bit, unaccompanied vocal, and then back to the riff. So that was an
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
where that came from.
yeah. I mean, we kind of knew a lot of those American blues guys from Chicago and what have you, but we didn't know their music that much, that well. You know, I I listened to. We had a Northwest band called the Fabulous Wailers that played a lot of stuff that was just slightly bluesy,
Ah.
and I loved their guitar player. And then I heard the Beano album, and there was Hideaway, and I heard that, and I kept saying, "Who is this guy named F. King? Written by F. King? Who's
Freddie
that guy?"
King,
And
yeah.
it took me years. And then there's a great Texas guitar player that passed away a few years ago named Bugs Henderson, who also he played with Freddie King, and so I kept tracking this and saying, "Who is this F. King?" You know, and I finally figured out, oh, okay, I've been listening and influenced by this guy's music for since my childhood, and I didn't know who he was. You know, so
Because I remember one of the members of the Moody Blues saying he got into what he called the Three Kings. That
oh
was
yeah,
Freddie King, B.B. King, and who was the other King?
Albert,
Albert King, yeah.
yes, yeah,
And that's why he left the Moody Blues. Or was it the Move? That was it. I think it was the Move, not the Moody Blues. The Move.
oh,
Yes, it was the Move.
okay,
They were a kind of a late psychedelic band,
ah,
um, led by a guy called um, Roy Wood, who went on to found ELO with
oh,
Jeff Lynne, but
okay,
soon dropped
sure,
out.
okay, yeah.
They,
When I was in high school in the '60s, to me, I don't think we really identified it as blues. We just loved it. But um, when I first heard Savoy Brown and a lot of their stuff, and in fact, my high school band, we closed every show with that Savoy Brown boogie, and for about 15 minutes, and yeah, we stole as much as we could, you know.
I'm trying to find. There's a great documentary on YouTube because I'm from Birmingham in the UK,
Oh,
and
okay.
there's a great documentary called about the Rock Family Trees, about the Birmingham. Because obviously Liverpool had their thing with the Beatles and the Holly, all those
Yeah.
Mersey beats, but there was the Birmingham beat where they got the Moody Blues, the Move, ELO, where all those people came from.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here we go. It's all in
Besides the
bits, but I
Beatles,
think
I think my favorite was the Zombies.
right, yeah,
I've been a I've been a fan, and they're still out there kicking it. Rod Argent and
yeah, they are.
Colin
Oh, Rod
Blunstone.
Argent, because he had his own band, didn't he? Argent.
Yes, Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's a different. And I guess that's kind of because when I started to learn guitar, it was kind of after I got into what we called serious music because as a kid I was a as a young kid I was into the Beatles until they started to go psychedelic. Then as a you know I kind of wasn't totally into that, but then I got into things that I identified later as like Burt Bacharach and Hal David songs
Oh yes, absolutely.
and Jimmy Webb. Great,
Yes.
because
Oh,
he.
I have I have terrible versions of by the time I get to Phoenix and Wichita
Oh
Lineman
yeah.
as instrumentals on my channel.
Oh,
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't. I mean,
not
I think I
good.
became aware because Burt Bacharach did have this short TV show for a while in like I think it was
Oh, that's right.
around 1970, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think he would have Dionne Warwick on the show
Yes.
because we got that in the UK. And I thought, oh right, this is the guy who writes all these songs, like
Yeah. He's
Do You Know the
genius.
Way
Yeah.
to San Jose and all that. I
Yeah.
love those. So rather than getting to the psychedelic thing, as a kid, I got more into that, and who I later understood was it's gone from me now. Jimmy Webb and MacArthur Park and Up and Away and
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
Wichita Lineman.
Yeah.
Great songwriter.
Yeah.
And then for a while, I was kind of into like very kind of lightweight pop in the early 70s. But then, there were interesting things like T-Rex
Oh yeah.
and then there was David Bowie and of course there was Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. But then I think it was through Elton John I got into more serious singer-songwriter stuff, and then Queen were big to me.
Brian May. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I came really close to buying a Brian May style guitar a
yeah.
number
Oh, I
of
thought
times.
about it, but the problem I have with that is unless you can play like Brian May, it's gonna
Yeah.
where could you go with that guitar?
Yeah.
It's like you couldn't if you did a gig with a guitar like that, people are going to expect Brian May riffs and
Yeah.
solos and stuff. And,
Yeah. Yeah, we never did that, and well, we
yeah,
liked we did Deep Purple stuff. There's kind of two incarnations: the original one and then a secondary one later. Smoke on the Water time. But
right.
yeah, we did a lot. We did not a lot, but a couple songs off their early stuff when I was in high school, like Hush and
Hmm.
stuff like that. When we had a big Hammond player.
Because I also got into Mike Oldfield. I don't know if he's
Oh
that
yeah,
as well known.
is he Tubular
Tubular
Bells?
Bells,
Oh
but
yes.
my
Oh, what an
favorite album
interesting.
because I bought that on cassette because kids at school were going around carrying the album Tubular Bells and stuff and would put it on their backpacks, and I thought, what is that about? So one time I bought myself the album on cassette. I had a teeny little cassette player back then and played it, and that blew my mind. Everything I liked about guitar was on that album.
Yeah.
But it
I
was
would,
Amadorn that I still love more, you know.
ah, okay. Yeah.
But
It was an interesting time because music, well, it was always that way, but it seemed more so that it just exploded and went so many different directions, and um, and
that's right.
so while I've been basically a blues and rock player only in my older years have I come back and said, wait a minute, what's this? What's this melodic major scale stuff? I need to pay more attention here, and so I've come back to that sort of music. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what, like a lot of kids in that era at that time, we wanted to try and be able to create music like that. So that's why we all got guitars. And
oh yeah,
my first proper guitar was like £40. I $70 maybe.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of money then, and it was not a very good guitar. But it got me. I learned to play on it, and I was 16, and
Yeah.
I was lost then.
Well, I had one brother played bass and one brother played lead, so I learned kind of both at the same time. But I
Oh,
was
I envy you for
mostly a
that.
bass player, mostly a bass
Yeah.
player in high school, and then went to doing folky kind of stuff out
Yes,
of
I
high
did
school.
that too. Yeah, I got into folk in the 80s big time, and
Yeah, I learned everything I could from Paul Simon and chord structure and James Taylor and
yes,
trying to learn finger picking. uh,
because I know Al Stewart.
yes,
Yeah, because he
I had one of his albums. Yeah.
Year of the Cat maybe, or
Yes, Year of the Cat. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because he tells some stories about he used to share a, a living space in London with Paul Simon before he was famous
Oh,
in London, and
oh, I did not. Wow.
yeah, he tells some funny stories because he tells a story where Al was at home listening to a Bob Dylan album, and Paul came in and said, "Oh, what are you listening to that trash for?" And Al said to him, "said When you can write a song as good as that, then you'll have something to say." And then so Paul Simon went and disappeared for a few days. He was so offended. But yeah, but yeah, but apparently, yeah, that's yeah. Paul shared an apartment or flat with Al Stewart in
I
before
did
he
not
was
know
famous
that.
in London.
A
Yeah,
little piece of history I hadn't read. So yeah.
yeah.
So the other part of my luck was my drummer was the younger brother of a guy who played guitar. We grew up mostly in Salem, Oregon, and he had gone down to LA and was doing studio work and had switched to. He was a great
Wow.
guitar player, but he had switched to bass and was working off and on under Carol Kay and the Wrecking Crew. And
Oh,
so,
Carol
so
Kay.
we were
Yeah.
hearing about the Wrecking Crew long before it ever kind of became public. It was like, yeah, they were recording the Monkees album, and it's like, well, the Monkees, no, the Monkees did not, oh, well, what about this? Well, that was them too. And so
Well,
I'd always wanted more history. And so when that film, The
yeah.
Wrecking Crew, came out, it was really great to see all the people he had talked about over the years. So, uh,
Carol Kay, a great bass player,
oh, terrific. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
And
remember seeing.
Standing in the Shadows is on Motown Studio Guys, and the other bass player there was James Jamerson, who's a terrific bass player also. Um,
It was a different type, a different method of bass playing then, wasn't it? Because she always promoted the use of you put a bit of foam rubber or something under the strings to get
yeah,
a
the
slight mute
original
on the
the original
bass. Yeah,
Fender jazz bass came with a little foam
interesting.
something. I
Yeah,
don't remember how it was used. Yeah,
and I don't know if you
one of them had a lever where you could put it up and mute it, and put it down
right.
and open. Yeah.
And I don't know whether she was joking, but she said something about never changing strings. She just gets another bass guitar or something. I don't know whether that was just a throwaway comment. Or,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. We did well. They were expensive. We didn't change that often. And
yeah.
I remember my middle brother was the bass player of my two older brothers, and I remember him boiling his bass strings in water with a couple
Wow.
teaspoons of vinegar, and then rinsing them and laying them out on a towel and drying them. And it seemed to work. It seemed to kind of bring them back to life. So it
It's
was
interesting. Yeah, I've heard of that.
funny stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Because you're talking about having siblings who can also play. I kind of envy you that because um, I didn't have
It
really
was a
anyone
big
else in
help.
the family who played anything.
Yeah, it was a huge
So,
help. Well,
well, I don't know whether you know much about Billie Eilish and her brother
I've heard
Phineas.
I don't know anything about her brother. I've heard of Billy though, and I've heard a couple of songs that I liked actually. So
Yeah.
that was
Well, I got into Billy's music last year when I heard her do that song "Your Power," and she was doing a live version. It's just her and her brother. He's on acoustic guitar, and it's just like classic acoustic
oh
singer-songwriter track.
I don't know if I heard. I'll have to go back and see if that's one of the ones I watched. But yeah,
But and that's what got me into them. Then I learned because I saw her do that performance. I thought, oh well, that must be the guitarist from her band. But then I found out it's her brother, and they basically grew up. Her brother was into music. He was doing home recording, and she was his younger sister. And she wanted to be a dancer, but she had some injuries and health issues or something. And but she was into music. She could play piano, guitar, and ukulele. And so they just started recording at home, and they just wrote and recorded that one song, Ocean Eyes, when she was like 14 or something. They put it on SoundCloud, and it just went whew. And that's how
and
it
that's
all
something.
started. Yeah. But I kind
Yeah,
of, that I kind of envy them both because they were, both these siblings with all this talent and the facility to record that we didn't have growing up. We didn't
yes,
have computers.
yeah.
If you were very lucky, you could get a reel-to-reel tape recorder or something.
Well, and that's what my guitarist had was a 4-track reel to reel,
Yeah.
and it was pretty hokey, but that was our first attempt at recording back in the '60s,
Well, I remember
and
getting
it
one.
worked.
Yeah, I think I got one in like 79, 80.
Yeah, I
Probably
still have
79.
my cassette. I don't even know what mom Tascam, I think,
Yes, I
cassette
had a
4-track.
Porter Studio.
That's what I have. That's what I
Yeah,
have.
I had
Yes.
one of those too.
Yeah.
And you're okay if you didn't do too many tracks. You could do. Oh, Vivian's having. Oh, is it Rhodey?
Rhodey's going to bed. Yeah.
Oh,
Night,
okay.
night,
Well,
Rhodey.
good night, Rhodey. Take care. Thanks for joining. But yeah, I, I did some stuff on Porter Studio. But
Yeah, we did quite a bit. I think as long as you didn't bounce too much, that was
that's it. That was the thing.
yeah. Now
And the,
you can
the
just
issue
do
for
it.
me was always, yeah, trying to find percussion that would
Ah,
work. Yeah.
yeah. We did it kind of live, and
Yeah.
my drummer had built a studio, and he had plexiglass up all around, kind of isolating us. There'd still be some bleed through, but boy, digital recording, wow, what a deal! Yeah, and I
Yeah.
still have my even though I record on computers now, I still have my I think it was a Boss 12-track, Tascam. I have a Tascam 8-track that's the size of a cell phone.
And what does that record on? Is that digital or tape?
That's digital. That's all digital. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see it here now. I don't remember the something '08, I think, but yeah.
Were they called Zooms as well? People would have a Zoom or something
Zoom's a
to record
brand.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zoom's another brand. I had a couple of their guitar foot pedals and I didn't have great luck with them. So,
Mm.
but, well,
But yeah, I kind of.
I have a photo shoot tomorrow morning, so I've
Oh,
got to
do
go.
you?
We've got to go check batteries and make sure everything's up and running. So that's my
Okay.
other channel. That's my third channel where I just do silly local community events and
Okay.
do it fairly
Kind of like
poorly.
reporting or something, or
I record parades. If there's a protest,
oh,
I'll
right.
do anything that
Okay.
happens on the street. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's just it's fun. So a lot of agricultural events. So
Hmm.
fun stuff. So I'm going to also scoot out of here. I'm glad we got to test
Okay.
this out, and I hope to see more
Yeah.
here.
Thank you
So
so
that
much.
would be
I've
great.
really enjoyed this. This is exactly what the kind of thing I was hoping would happen. Just get
Yeah,
to
And
chat
it,
about music, and
it appears to have worked okay from what I can
yeah,
tell. I mean, I think it looks good. So
excellent.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much,
Oh,
Colin. I appreciate that.
well, thank
And
you. Oh, sorry, I only know you as Great Vanzini.
yeah, Lars
So,
is what my
Lars, okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Lars. Appreciate it.
You bet. Okay. Well, you have a good
Yeah,
night. Thank you,
you
and good
too.
night, everybody in the chat. Vivian and Terry and Rhodey already left, but good night,
Yeah,
all.
I'm going to scoot out myself because I got to feed my cats and
Ah,
do the dishes.
yes. Okay.
Well, thank you,
Good night.
Lars.
You bet.
Good night.
Night night.
Bye. Oh, that was great fun. Well, everyone, just coming up to 11 o'clock almost, my time. It must be way later for you guys. But yes, thank you for joining. I'm going to go and do some dishes and feed my cats, feed my indoor cats and feed the outdoor feral cats that I try and take care of. So thank you so much, Vivian, Terry, Rhodey. I can leave it available if you like. There's a lot of the video will be not much happening because it took a while for people to. Although Vivian joined quite soon, and I play some ukulele. A lot of messing around. So it'll probably still be available for a while. So you can catch up with it, Terry. But this has been great. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I'll do another one. And again, you know, maybe I'll try and schedule these so there'll be um, an upcoming thing posted on YouTube, and you can, plan to join. And yeah, it'd be great if we can have more chats. That'd be super. But thank you all. Take care. Happy weekend. And yeah, we'll catch up again soon. Okay? Thank you. Good night, everyone.